Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Daily Video Diary. Today, it's Friday, got that Friday feeling going. Didn't want to wake up this morning, feeling pretty tired. But we're heading on into work. We have redesigning to do and actual programming to do today. New programming, woo! And ladies and gentlemen, we are back from work. I'm just, videos are online now, ready. I still do a video every day, even though I'm like a week behind. Every video I do, it's because I know when I catch up again, I don't want to be in the habit of like bulk uploading still. So we got everything online, whatever. What's been going on today? Today was a pretty exciting day at work today, it's got to be said. We went in and we were sorting out, I sorted out like the finalised designs. Yesterday I came up with a semi-decent prototype of what it was that I wanted to do. But then as I was leaving, last night-ish, I thought of like a better way of like encapsulating some of the information. So I went in and I went through and tried to decipher the pattern that was used to generate the errors that are generated. So it logs these special errors onto an object. But the format of those errors looks completely unintelligible, like completely unintelligible. So I thought, well, it can't be unintelligible, can it? You've got to be able to, like, there must be a way of going through it and trying to figure out what it is that is broken, or like, not broken, sorry, what it is that is throwing, like, why is it that in this case, this string is in this format, but in this case it's in this format? So I went through, tried to figure out a pattern, saw a pattern, and then was able to like separate it all out so it would work in like a, so I could have a rule that would use a certain criteria based on certain things in order to log the error that it needs to log. So I can encapsulate the logging of an error and pass it the information that it needed, done. And then I could have that 3 different objects that would log errors in different ways based on whichever criteria the rule needed, and it would just do it. And it was pretty cool. So I wrote it all down, got it all in like a thing, sorted, went to stand up, said that like I'd figured out a design and that like I'm ready to put it forward. And then they were like, oh, why don't we have like one of our developer sessions then? And then we can go through like everything that you're doing. Now the developer sessions are like things that we do literally every blue moon. I think we've done 4 of them, this is the 4th that I've been since I've been there. They apparently used to do them quite often. Where someone would essentially host it and then they'd say what they've done, like, and it'd be a case of like, here's how you should do things moving forward. Or you'd like come up with discussions and all that kind of stuff. And I was going to put forward what I'd done in order to be like, hey guys, this is what we should do to test stuff. I'm also going to be doing one next week as well. But I thought I was only going to do one. I literally got lumbered with it. And I'm like, well, what? I wasn't even expecting one to be on today because we haven't had one in ages. And then suddenly I was hosting it. And I had to talk people through the approach I took to refactoring this piece of code. That was a pretty big deal. I was like, oh shit, okay. Like, oh, well it must be good then, because like the person who put me forward has seen it before, so it must be okay, so that's good. Felt confident in that respect, but then I was like, oh shit, it's going to be like under the microscope for everybody else in the room. So, went back, I showed my design to 2 different people, Paul and Tom, who are like my bezies at work, and I was like, go through this and tell me like how you, like, I want you to be able to read it and let it work without me telling you how it works. And it was just in Notepad++, so it was literally just a number of classes in Notepad++ in one file. So like the only thing he'd ask every now and again and be like, oh, what's this object? And then I'd go, oh yeah, if you scroll down, that one, and then etc. Because you couldn't like just go to definition and all that kind of shit that you can do in an IDE. But if I put it in an IDE, then it'd just be red. Everywhere would be red squiggly lines because it wouldn't compile. It was just like a default example thing. And I showed them both. They both like came up with like ideas of being like, oh, does this make sense like this? And I changed one main thing that I changed. I was building a bit like how I built a Fluent API for my own project in C#. I built something like that where it would take something in and then it would like give out an interface that did something if it was possible and didn't do something if it wasn't possible. So I built like this API thing, got it sorted, and then we figured out that actually it kind of makes more sense because I was going to do the default action was going to be like in a base class, so that everyone could have the same thing and it wouldn't have to be duplicated across everyone's code or in all of the different rules. But then we discovered that it actually makes more sense to have a default thing that then gets injected in, because then you could just it's easier to inject in a new default if you needed a special default in a certain area. So that was a change. So I changed my fancy Fluent API into more of like it literally just gives you a interface to call on rather than another version of itself. I think what I went for was trying to be clever for being clever's sake. And it turns out that if you can't do it in Java anyway, so it wouldn't have compiled. It's like a C#. I'm using C#. Things you can do in C# but you can't do in Java, basically. So it's a good job I didn't try that. So finalised the plan, figured out my design, like kind of ran it through in my head so I could go through the order in which it was done, and then I went into the meeting, this like design thing, and like presented everything, and I like, the things on the thing was like, what it is that I'm trying to do, how it is I went about doing it, the testing of it, the design of the new one, and I went through what it was, what I was trying to solve, showed them the stuff, showed them like the 100% code coverage I'd got on my cat tests, and then there was an argument. Like, we didn't get on to the design. I don't know if it was a good design. I'm going to like start implementing it. That's why I'm doing one next week, is because that's going to be the one where I talk about the redesign. And hopefully, to be fair, by then... Oh, I didn't do that. I should have done that. Oops. To log my time. Hopefully by then... What? Words? Hopefully by then I should have like a working prototype of a certain number of things. So that should be good. But what we were arguing about is because I'd cat tested this thing, where I'd basically sent it data, figured out how to manipulate the data so that I could explore every single possible tree in this piece of code. So it was test data, so it wasn't realistic data, fired in stuff and then manipulated it to hit each if statement, go into an if statement, do it, register the fact that I'd done it from the output, and then test it. Then, in theory, the same data pushed into my new version will do the exact same in every single way. And there's no possible way of me changing or missing out something because a test would pick it up. It'll go, hang on, I don't do this anymore. And then there was this big argument about whether or not, because there's two contractors that are in, and one of the contractors said, I would have gone about this the other way. And that's what spun the argument, like immediately. It was like, I would have done this the other way. Instead of kind of writing if statements that explore every possible case, edge case, I would have just got the thing that fires data into it, and monitored what data it fires in, and then just fire that in, and then just like save it as a map, and then just do that over and over again. And then I was like, but by doing that, you don't have complete, like you have to do this as well. Like you can't not do this to be confident that it's the same thing. And then we got into a big debate about whether or not by refactoring it, we should in fact remove functionality that we don't think is used. My idea is, essentially, if I'm told to refactor something, the definition of the word refactor is make it prettier, but don't change its functionality in any way, shape or form. And his argument was that what we should do, because this thing is clearly garbage, is we should go through it and figure out what's actually used and then redesign based on what we think is used rather than based on what it does now. Because there are probably things in there that were needed 10 years ago and aren't needed anymore and aren't ever called. So why re-implement it, or why have that affect your design when it's unnecessary? So that was a kettle of fish, because then some people started going like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. But then I was like, but how long do you run this? Like, even if you could, for some reason, like in an ideal world, we put this on a live box, we deploy it to live with some kind of logger that logs every single input that goes in and every single output that comes out for a week. How do we know that that's every test case? How about we do it for 2 months? What if one of our clients, every leap year, fires in a piece of data that currently works fine, but if it didn't, like, it's a validator, so the validator catches it, but if it doesn't catch it, it fires nuclear missiles at Mars. Like, you can't know that. By doing that kind of tracking data, firing it in, you don't know for a fact that you've covered every possible edge case. You don't know for a fact that it's kind of like a neural network in the sense where I've got an algorithm that's a rough approximation to the original one, whereas my cat tests basically ensure that there are no edge cases. Like, whatever the code currently does, my code does exactly the same but better. It does more or less the same. There might be some edge cases it misses, but they're edge cases, so it doesn't matter. It's literally like a like for like, exactly the same. There will be no extra edge cases missed. There'll be the exact same number of edge cases missed between mine and the other one. And then there was like this big debate about whether or not that we either A, could just change functionality willy-nilly if we decided that it wasn't necessary, whether or not it was worth doing the kind of cat testing I did. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, it definitely is. And it was like, he like kind of said this to me, then we had like a couple of people like chiming in, and then I was like pushing, I'm like, yeah, but guys, like, you can't possibly do that. And then they said, but all these unit tests I've just written now are going to break, and I'm like, they're not unit tests, they're cat tests, they're designed so that if I change the re-implementation, it's fine. The only difference between this and an integration test is the fact that it's not real data. That's the only difference. And they can be reused, and by all means, record the input and output, and we'll do that as well. We can do that as well, that's fine, but you need this. And there was literally an hour and a half in this room of like backwards and forth, people defending one way or the other way, whether it should be done this way or that way, whether it should be cut down in size because we know for a fact it won't work, whereas essentially I'm replicating the bugs. Like, the cat test assume that it's 100% accurate. Whereas the idea is of like figuring out the thing that fires data in is you figure out what this expects it to do and then do that instead of keep it identical. And like, so it was a really interesting like back and forth, and we're all trying to figure out the best way of testing this kind of thing. I lie on the side of very aggressive, well, not aggressively, but I dig my heels in and say like, if I'm told to refactor something, I don't change its functionality. Like, I make it prettier and I make it extensible. He said, because it was like, well, why bother then? You've got these cat tests now, we've got it unit tested, in inverted commas. Why bother thinking it? He says, well, the things that I make for this could then be reused across other validators. It can be easily extended. It can be all this. You just don't have that. And it was a really interesting like session. And I think, like, my point of view came across. It was like literally a case of, I think like a couple of people chimed in and agreed with me and said that like the quickest way would be monitor data, fire at it. But that's not the best way because you don't know for a fact that it's thingy. Like, you can't just go to your client and say, yeah, by the way, this is broke in your thing. Or if they come back and say, here's an error, and I've left and I'm working somewhere else and no one knows how or why I took it out, then, you know what I mean? I'm not having that decision on my head. If someone wants to come up to me, or if I raise something and I go, hey, this is a bug, and they'll be like, no, that's intended. I'm like, okay, I'll replicate. But otherwise, I replicate everything in it. So if I think it's a bug, then I try and figure out if someone knows whether it is or not. But even then, that's got to be something, even if I find a bug and we know for a fact it's a bug, I still have to replicate it. Because there could be other parts of the system that rely on that bug. And it's not until we take that out that if we take that out, we then don't know. And the problem is the system is so badly tested that there's no way of guaranteeing that taking out a piece of functionality because we think it's a bug, there isn't something else that relies on it. There's no way of knowing that kind of information. So it was quite an interesting debate. I don't think there was really a conclusion. I think both sides decided to just back down, but I think I was about to say, I don't think the other person is the kind of person who backs down, but I also think I wasn't wrong. So take that however you want it, to know what you think about it. And then obviously we talked about like other ways that we can do testing and whether we should, because we shouldn't carry on doing crap tests. We should try and make it better as we go. And the problem the company has is it's just taken on a ridiculous amount of graduates and it's kind of giving them bad habits. Which is a thing, and they're trying to improve it, but there isn't really a structure to do it apart from us kind of self-regulating ourselves, and the two contractors kind of regulating us as well. So it was interesting. It was a good day at work, but I am like one of very few. I've basically put it out there that like I test shit. and I'm the guy to go to ask questions if you've got questions about testing. So I was really proud of myself. I thought I did really well. Otherwise, came home. I didn't start re-implementing my design. I'm going to try and do that on Monday. It was literally like we finished and then had like half an hour. There's no point sitting around and doing it for half an hour. So I did it all, didn't log my time, and now came home. We are going out tonight. We're going for a meal with Beth and Ben. We're going to somewhere called Cao. C-A-O. Never been there before, but looking forward to it. Whew. We're getting the bus down because we're going to have an alcoholic bevy. Cheeky Bev. And I think Beth and Ben are driving down, so you never know, we might be able to swag a lift back. Oh, that's Dad ringing me. I will ring you back, Dad. When did you ring me? About 10 minutes ago. And we're back from a night out, ladies and gentlemen. We went for a meal with Beth and Ben. We went to a restaurant called Cao. C-A-U. I think I said this. I either said this to you earlier or I said it to my dad on the phone earlier. And it was pretty good. We were there for like 2 hours. And like the waiters came like several times and asked if we figured out what we wanted to order, and we were like, no. We've just been sat chatting. But yeah, it was quite strange though, because like I ordered a steak, and it was literally like presented as just a steak on a plate. I've never seen anything so bizarre in my life. And then like a little basket of chips. I understand that like putting the chips in a basket, and the chips to be fair were gorgeous as well. Putting the chips in the basket is like an aesthetic thing that like restaurants do, similar to how they serve things on a chopping board, even though it's much more convenient to put it on a plate. So they serve the chips in like a little basket thing that's supposed to be like all arty and fancy, but because they decided to do that, you just gave me a steak on a plate, like no salad, no nothing, so it just looks like a big slab of meat on a plate with a little basket of chips. Like if you put the chips on there, like put them in like a crisscross pattern, it would have looked much more appetising. Also I asked for medium rare, and it was rarer than medium. It was definitely on the rare side of the spectrum. It was still nice, but it was like just on the edge of where I draw the line. Remind me to do that tomorrow. Right, okay, so yeah, that's about all, ladies and gentlemen. We had a good old chinwag, had a good old meal, and then we came back. Beth and Ben drove into town, so they gave us a lift back because they're bays. Yep, off. And we watched the news. Laura fell asleep on the floor. I've been trying to get her to go to bed for about half an hour now. I'm now ready for bed. And legit. Several times I'm like woke her up and gone, bedtime. Yeah. God damn it. Right, so tomorrow we are going shopping. We're going to town. Got some stuff to organise. That's about it really. So I need a new light bulb for this. I need a working shower as well. Landlord has said that apparently all of his plumbers that he knows are all having a week off this week. So he hasn't been able to get anyone round. He's going to try again at the weekend, but if not, he knows someone's coming back on Monday. God damn it, man. So we're going to have another bloody bath tomorrow. If it's not fixed by Monday, I'm just going to have a shower at work on Monday. Because I can't have another bath. I'll kill myself. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I've got to move this one. I'll catch you later.